So I'd like to start this discussion of public speak apprehension with a story. And I get this story from a colleague who unfortunately is no longer with us, Richard Doquette. And he taught public speaking at a university, and he was talking about some of the things he's dealt with communication apprehension. And so he was teaching a public speaking class, a live in-person public speaking class. And this particular class he was scheduled in a piano recital room. So he goes there, first day of class. They're going to be doing an introductory speech, and since it's a recital room, there are chairs, but there's also a stage. So he had the speakers go up and stand up on the stage, and there was a piano up on the stage. And so, for the most part, he had what we'd call traditional age students, right, 18 to 22-year-olds. But there was a woman in his class who had returned to university after a number of years in the workforce. So she had, not a full lifetime of experience, but a lot of experience. Anyway, so they were just doing this basic introductory speech assignment. Just come up, tell us a little bit about yourself. This woman, it's her turn, so she goes up on stage, and she starts to do her introductory speech, and then just, boom, gone. Just freezes up. Lights on, nobody home, okay? And so this sometimes happens, first day of public speaking classes, but, the teacher's like, come on, just continue where you left off, and doing all that sort of stuff. Not happening. And it's getting worse, right? So she goes, the cold sweats have broken out, she starts trembling. And so then this woman crawled under, this is not a joke, this woman crawled under the piano on the stage, okay? Whole class is there. She's underneath the piano on the stage. So Richard Doquette's like, what do he's never, you don't have that type of scenario happen. So he goes up on the stage and he's like, could you come out? He's trying to tempt her out, little breadcrumbs on the ground, nothing's working. She is catatonic as a result of nerves. So he excuses the class. All the students go home for the day, and it's just him and this woman in the room, piano recital room. She's under the piano. He's trying to get her to come out. Nothing. So he finally is like, the best thing he can think of to do is he goes and he turns out the lights and he leaves the room. And then she never came back. I mean, that's a given, right? She never came back. And that story is awful. That is horrible and a little funny, but mostly awful. And what's tragic about it is it doesn't have to happen. Every single person has some type of apprehension about public speaking. And it's totally natural, okay? Public speaking we're the only animals that do this, right? So you don't see dogs out there, gathered. There's 5 dogs and one standing up. And guys, before we play poker, we got to talk about the cat situation. I got one in my house. Larry's got one in his house. Okay, this is bad. You don't see that. We're the only animals that do this. Okay? And so it's entirely natural that we are apprehensive about some type of face-threatening act like this. Okay? So what I want to be doing today is talking about what causes public speak apprehension and some of the techniques that you can use to negotiate this feeling of apprehension, okay? Or to channel it in positive ways. Let me say at the outset, I don't know who started the whole picture your audience in their underwear. I once had somebody call me, and he was writing a book on public speaking, and he had questions for me about, well, do you know where this started? How it emerged? I have no idea. I think it's a great thing to track down. There's no other fearful scenario in which we suggest that. I'm terrified of bears. Have you pictured one in a thong? Yes. Now I'm terrified and slightly aroused. So, we don't do that with other stuff. So why would we do that with public speaking? All right, but I do want to talk about what is this thing. If we're going to deal with it, we got to figure out what it is. So I want to talk about what public speaking apprehension is, sort of how it manifests, and then what some prevention techniques are. So to begin with, what is public speaking apprehension? Well, there are large, some people have general communication apprehension, sort of social nervousness, but we're talking specifically about the apprehension that's associated with standing up to deliver a presentation. Well, we can distinguish between trait and state, okay? So we could say that some people have the trait. Some people experience more public speaking apprehension than others. But then also state, maybe experiencing more public speaking apprehension in particular situations. So we can think about, are you more apprehensive the pre-speech or confrontation, that first minute of public speaking, or adaptation after you've been going for a while, or post-speech after you've finished. But so we want to be thinking about, is it general apprehensiveness, and is there apprehensive rooted in certain types of situations? And then types of public speaking apprehension. Well, there's physiological, right? So sweaty, sweaty palms, faster heart rate, increased blood pressure, these sorts of things. There's cognition, okay, sort of how we're labeling that, that inner voice, what we're telling the story about ourselves, oh, I'm bombing, as well as just sort of cognitive impacts like if you're really nervous, maybe there's going to be slower processing, you're not doing stuff or thinking as quickly as you might otherwise. And then we can talk about behavioral, things that you're performing when you perform your nervousness, trembling, things that audiences can see and interpret. Although, of course, typically we feel more apprehensiveness than audiences see. Okay, so they don't see inside our head, so they don't know that we're saying to ourselves that we're nervous. And more often than not, we're talking about all these factors happening simultaneously. So it's not like public speaking is one thing that can be eliminated by one thing. It's situational, it's contextual, based on sort of how you've developed. So how do we get this type of public speaking apprehension? Well, certainly if you've had lots of bad experiences, you're probably going to be a bit more apprehensive. Maybe you're just generally apprehensive about social situations. But there's lots of reasons why we would become apprehensive about public speaking. And also, certain, again, as I mentioned, certain aspects of situations may make us more apprehensive. Typically, these would be sort of the novelty of the speaking situation, so it's just something you're not familiar with, the formality of the speaking situation, and the degree of evaluation. Here's, by the way, one of the advantages of taking a MOOC on this is because generally what we see is where degree of evaluation goes up, so does apprehensiveness. So formal classes where you're getting a grade tend to, across the broad spectrum, increase apprehensiveness more than something like when you're practicing at home. But of course, then you got to make sure that you're practicing well enough that it's going to be beneficial to you in the development of your skill. So all of these come to bear. So in terms of formality, right, I feel very comfortable doing speeches to huge audiences, no problem. 10 students, 100 students, 1,000 students are audience members. I love big audiences, so that's not what gets it for me. But formality and novelty of speaking situation, I can still get apprehensive. So for example, I'm here at the communication department. At the end of each year, we graduate just a ton of communication majors, and we have our own graduation ceremony. At that ceremony, I have to read people's names, and I dread this all year because formality is huge. I'm up there in my formal robes, and a degree of evaluation is massive, right? I don't want to screw up someone's name when their family's there, right? Nothing would be worse than getting your degree and having the professor you liked, mangle your name and just perform for everyone that they don't know who you are. And that's not the case, but in many cases, I don't know people's last name. So that is a situation where I feel significantly more apprehension than I do in other situations. So all of this is to say there are so many factors going on, and all of these are entirely natural. Now, what you want to know is, how do we negotiate it? How do we eliminate it? The answer is, well, we probably don't eliminate it. And in some ways, that's a good thing, okay? Because if there's a physiological response, advanced heart rate, it's a question of how we're cognitively labeling that. Do I label that as, oh, I'm terrified, or, oh, I'm excited, this is going to be awesome? Okay? So some of that nervousness can actually be channeled towards good ends. So what are some of these techniques for negotiating communication apprehension? Well, first off, just becoming used to speaking situations and a wide variety of speaking situations. This was part of in the public speaking literature. They typically talk about systematic desensitization, cognitive modification, and skills training. This figures in under systematic desensitization. So basically, just getting familiar with a wide range of speaking situations so that you're desensitized to the apprehensiveness you would feel in that situation. Certainly also there are relaxation methods that can help you become desensitized to the apprehension of a particular situation. Or one thing that they'll sometimes do is have you lay down and just picture yourself in front of larger and larger audiences with the idea that you're trying to envision yourself in those scenarios and just not automatically feeling as apprehensive. So becoming used to speaking situations. Under cognitive modification, it basically means changing how you think about public speaking. Now, in last week's lectures, we talked about communication and performance orientation. This is one of the ways in which we are going to be doing this. One of the ways in which we're going to be changing the way you think about public speaking is through this communication orientation. Meaning, don't look at that public speaking situation as an overly formal scenario where if you say one word wrong, you are wrong and you're bad and maybe a little evil. So we're not doing that. We're thinking about how can we speak more conversationally. And this changes the approach to communication and to that public speaking event. You're just talking with the audience. Another thing under cognitive modification, changing how you think about public speaking, is just basic visualization. So odds are the night before you do a speech, 5 minutes before you do a speech, you're going to have a picture in your head of what it looks like. Okay? You can either picture yourself doing well or poorly. That model in your head can either be you to an audience acclaiming you, saying, thank you, thank you. You know what? You're the real heroes for showing up here tonight. It's not me. So you can either picture that or you can picture yourself, getting very nervous, sweating, shaking. Odds are you're going to do better if you visualize yourself doing better. Okay, so visualize yourself doing well. And then finally, skills training. This is really where I put most of my efforts towards reducing public speaking apprehension. Just getting better at the mechanics of putting together and delivering a speech. So I certainly believe in a mixture of all of these. Think about how to become more familiar with public speaking situations so they're not as odd and different and novel and terrifying. And that means, unfortunately, doing more speeches. There's no way around that. Okay? The more you get used to it, the less apprehensive you'll be. Certainly, I want you to be thinking from a communication orientation. That's going to help you change your thinking about delivering a speech, as well as visualize yourself doing well. But a lot of this class is going to aim at skills training. Here's how to put together a speech so that it's going to sound good.